Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for standing by, and welcome to the first quarter of 2021 Momo Incorporated earnings conference call. At this time, all participants are in listen-only mode. After the speaker's presentation, there will be a question-and-answer session. And to ask a question during the session, you need to press star and the number 1 on your telephone. Please note that this conference is being recorded today. And I'd like to hand the conference over to your first speaker today, Ms. Kathy Tang. Thank you. Please go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you, operator. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for Momo's first quarter 2021 earnings conference call. The company's results were released earlier today and are available on the company's IR website. On the call today from Momo are Mr. Wang Li, CEO of the company, and Mr. Jonathan Zhang, CFO of the company. They will discuss the company's business operations and highlights, as well as the financials and guidance. They will all be available to answer your questions during the Q&A session that follows. Before we begin, I would like to remind you that the call may contain forward-looking statements made under the Safe Harbor provisions of the Private Securities Litigation Reform Act of 1995. Such statements are based on management's current expectations and current market and operating conditions and relate to events that involve known or unknown risks, uncertainties, and other factors, all of which are difficult to predict and many of which are beyond the company's control, which may cause the company's actual results, performance, or achievements to differ materially from those in the forward-looking statements. Further information regarding these or other risks, uncertainties, and factors is included in the company's filings with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. The company does not undertake any obligation to update any forward-looking statement as a result of new information, future events, or otherwise, except as required under law. I will now pass the call over to Mr. Wang. I will translate for him. Mr. Wang, please.
大家好，感谢参加今天的电话会。一季度公司在各方面都有不错的表现，为2021年开了个好头。上次电话会我给大家介绍了今年的战略重点。一季度Momo和探探的团队加大了向这些战略目标推进的力度。在今天电话会上，我想首先回顾一季度的运营和财务成果，然后给大家介绍一下我们在实施公司战略重点方面取得的进展。
Good morning and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining our conference call today. Q1 was a good quarter and a decent start to the year 2021. On our last earnings call, I outlined our strategic priorities for the year. In Q1, both Momo and Tantan teams have stepped up our efforts to drive towards the strategic goals. On the call today, I will walk you through the key operating and financial results for the quarter, and then I'm going to give you an update on the progresses that we've made against the company's priorities.
首先，简单介绍一下财务表现。2021年一季度总营收34.7亿人民币，同比下降3%。主要由于我们去年3季度进行的结构性改革，导致直播收入有所下滑。不过令人欣喜的是，无论从用户指标还是收入角度来看，改革都已初见成效，叠加一季度 VAS 业务显著的加速增长，共同带动收入同比降幅较上季度大幅收窄。同时，收入结构持续多元化，实现了更长尾也更稳定的收入结构。一季度 VAS 收入达到直播收入规模的74%。
First of all, a brief overview of the financial performance. For the first quarter 2021, total revenue was 3.47 billion RMB, down 3% year-over-year due to the decrease in live streaming revenue, which was further attributable to the structural reform we undertook in Q3 last year. However, I'm happy to see that the reform has started bearing fruit, both in terms of the user metrics and in terms of revenue trajectory. That, coupled with accelerated growth in the VAS business in Q1, has significantly narrowed down the YOY decrease rate from the previous quarter. At the same time, the revenue mix continued to diversify into a more long tail and stable structure, with VAS reaching 74% the size of live streaming in Q1.
本季度调整后净利润6.34亿人民币，对应净利润率18%。不包含探探亏损，Momo主 App 调整后净利润6.76亿人民币，对应净利润率23%。探探一季度总营收5.68亿人民币，同比增长49%。探探调整后净亏损4204万人民币，去年同期为1.032亿人民币，
Adjusted net income for the quarter was 634 million RMB, representing an 18% profit margin. Excluding Tantan's net loss, adjusted net income for the core Momo was 676 million RMB, or a 23% profit margin. Tantan's total revenue came in 568 million RMB for the first quarter, up 49% year-over-year. Adjusted net loss from Tantan was 42.04 million RMB for the quarter, compared to 103.2 million RMB for the year-ago period.
接下来具体介绍一下本季度情况。首先是用户增长， Momo 主 App 一季度 MAU 1.153亿人， 同比增长 7%， 用户规模环比实现反季节增长， 季度净增150万人。我很高兴地看到，一季度即便在季节性因素的负面影响下，不仅 MAU 创历史新高，而且一些反映陌陌社交效率的关键用户指标也出现了很大改善。其中，围绕附近动态产生的互动量、日均双向互动关系链对数以及对点的消息量均达到2017年以来的最高水平。用户召回模型的优化，促进回流用户30天留存率较去年同期提升了4个百分点，使整体留存率在加大获客规模的情况下仍在高位保持稳定。陌陌主 App 在流量和收入方面呈现的良好势头，主要归功于3个因素。第一，团队去年在改善平台基础社交体验方面取得的进展。第二，春节期间和春节之后我们采取了正确而有效的渠道策略。第三，去年下半年结构性改革取得的成果。
Now a deeper dive into the quarter. First, the growth of our community. The core Momo had 115.3 million monthly actives for the first quarter 2021, up 7% year-on-year and growing against seasonality with a 1.5 million net addition from Q4 last year. I'm proud to see that despite the negative seasonality in Q1, not only did MAU reach a record high, but also some of the most important metrics reflecting core Momo social efficiency grew meaningfully. Among them, the number of interactions around nearby content, the number of average daily two-way interactions, as well as the number of one-to-one messages have all reached their peak since the year 2017. The optimization of user resurrection model drove 30 days retention ratio for resurrected users to improve 4 percentage points versus Q1 last year, which enabled the overall retention ratio to remain stable at a high level despite the increase of channel investment. The positive trajectory that we've been seeing on the core Momo, both in terms of traffic and in terms of grossing, can be attributable to 3 factors. Number 1, the progresses that we made in improving the basic social experiences last year. Number 2, the right approaches that we adopted on the channel marketing side, both during and after Chinese New Year holiday. And number 3, the fruits that came out of the structural reform in the second half of last year.
一季度付费用户数为910万人，环比净增10万人。付费用户数量突破春节压力，实现反季节增长，主要得益于春节后 MAU 的迅速恢复。
Now, a number of paying users for the quarter was 9.1 million, representing a 100,000 net addition from a quarter ago. The number of paying users has grown against the negative seasonality in Q1 as a result of the robust recovery trend in MAU post-Lunar Year holiday.
接下来介绍一下探探的用户趋势和相关指标。正如我们上季度财报电话会上所说，受渠道资源竞争激烈以及探探自身获客效率低下的影响，探探 DAU 自去年3季度末以来一直承压。从去年11月开始，我们削减了探探的渠道投放，将精力转移到修复自身获客体系中存在的问题上，以便能更有效地把握春节后的有利时间窗口。渠道投入缩量导致 DAU 在1月延续了去年12月的下降趋势，并在2月上旬触底。2月上旬，渠道竞争放缓，我们借机加大市场投放力度，用户数据也随之有所回暖。此外，伴随市场策略的充分调整，我们在用户数据方面看到一些初步但非常重要的进展，例如针对女性用户的全新广告素材大幅提升了新增女用户占比，留存率也得到了很好的提升。探探 DAU 从2月中旬的低点逐步反弹，3月平均 DAU 反弹至略高于去年12月均值。更重要的是，本季度的用户增长建立在环比更低的渠道投入基础上。此轮试投放表明，即便仅对市场策略进行初步调整，也能对用户增长的质量和成本效率 起到重要的积极作用。这也印证了我们的预判，即探探在提升获客 ROI 的同时，用户规模仍有很大的增长空间。我们在去年下半年以及过去2年里遇到的挑战是完全可以解决的。
Now turning to Tantan's user trend and related metrics. As mentioned on our last earnings call, Tantan's DAU has been under pressure since late Q3 last year due to intensive competition of channel resources as well as the low efficiency in Tantan's own user acquisition efforts. Since November last year, we've lowered Tantan's marketing spend and shifted the efforts toward fixing some of the technical problems in the user acquisition system in order to more effectively seize the marketing window post-Chinese New Year. As a result of the decrease in marketing spend, the December week user trend continued through January and hit the lowest point in early February. The user data started picking up after we stepped up our marketing efforts when channel competition became milder towards mid-Feb. Furthermore, as a result of these preliminary improvements in the marketing approach, we were able to see some initial but meaningful progresses in the user data. For example, the new, more female-oriented ad materials have substantially improved the gender ratio in the newly acquired users. The retention ratio has also seen meaningful improvements. Tantan's DAU also gradually ramped from the lowest point in mid-February and eventually delivered a slightly higher average DAU in March than in December 2020. More importantly, we managed to achieve that while further lowering the quarterly marketing spend from Q4. This round of test campaign shows that even some initial adjustments in the marketing approach could make some meaningful changes, both in terms of quality of user growth and in terms of cost efficiency. This has confirmed our belief that Tantan has plenty of headroom to grow its user base while making better sense of ROI. The challenges that we encountered in the second half of last year and more broadly across the past 2 years is very much fixable.
截止2021年1季度末，探探付费用户数为350万人，较上季度的380万人减少了30万人。环比下降主要有3个因素所致：一是1、2月 DAU 承压，二是新增用户中女性占比提升对付费转化率造成负面影响，因为女性用户为增值服务付费的几率远低于男性用户。三是 SVP 的提价效应对付费用户数产生的负面影响仍未完全消化。
Tantan's paying user count came in 3.5 million end of Q1 2020, down from 3.8 million last quarter. The 300K net decrease was due to the combination of 3 factors. Number 1, the weak DAU performance in January and February. Number 2, the increase in the female percentage in the new users having a negative impact on paying conversion, as women are much less likely to pay for value-added services in comparison with men. Number 3, the lingering impact of the rollout of SVIP package, which had a price lifting effect and thus a negative impact on the number of paying users.
在回顾本季度运营和财务成果之前，我想再陈述一下年初我给团队设立的战略目标。对于Momo主 App， 我给团队设立的3个目标是：第一，利用有限的营销预算来实现主站用户稳中求涨，并且取得比去年更好的 ROI；第二，推动业务重回增长轨道；第三，持续丰富品牌矩阵，拓宽Momo和探探之外的业务边界。对探探来说，今年唯一重要的战略目标是通过大幅提升营销效率以及核心约会体验，以推动用户规模的稳步增长。接下来给大家回顾一下本季度我们针对这些战略重点展开的工作。
Before I start the operational and business review of the company, I would like to reiterate the strategic priorities that I set for my teams at the beginning of the year. On the core Momo side, I have 3 goals for the team. Number 1, further grow the core user base with limited marketing budget and improve the ROI versus last year. Number 2, bring the business back onto growth track. And number 3, continue to enrich our product portfolio and push the boundaries beyond Momo and Tantan. On the Tantan side, the single most important goal for the year is to deliver solid user growth by substantially improving the marketing efficiency as well as the core dating experience. Next, I'm going to take you through what we've done in the past quarter regarding each of the priorities.
首先介绍一下我们在更好的服务Momo社区以及推动用户增长方面取得的进展。产品端最终的任务之一是不断挖掘未能满足的用户需求，并找出有效的解决方案。 在这方面，我们显然需要做的一项工作是更好地满足女性用户的社交偏好。很久以来，我们一直可以看到女性用户在陌陌上显示出强烈的社交意愿，但他们的社交偏好跟男性差别很大。女性有强烈的情感倾诉需求，对陌生人特别是异性表现得更加慢热。我们过去的产品和服务显然对男性用户更加友好，却没有很好地照顾女性的社交偏好。一季度我们进行了一些新的产品实验来弥补这一空白。我们小范围测试了一款名为情感电台的音频社交体验，以及一款基于信息流的全新体验小宇宙，让用户在无需公开个人资料信息的前提下发布动态并实现互动。这两款产品旨在鼓励用户分享他们的情感经历，倾诉自身的真实感受。对于陌陌平台上最为多见的用户诉求是两种非常不一样的社交需求，通常是女性用户的核心诉求。我们的目标是通过更好的服务于女性用户的需求，来提升他们的活跃及留存率。如果我们能在这方面取得成功，这将带动大盘的活跃及增长。这是产品团队今年一个非常重要的探索方向。
First, I'd like to review the progresses we made in better serving the Momo community and drive user growth. One of the most important goals on the product side is to keep identifying the underserved user demand and figure out ways to effectively address them. One obvious thing that we can do on that front is to take better care of female user social preferences. We've long been seeing social desire from female users on Momo. However, women's social preferences can be quite different from that of men's. Women tend to have stronger inclination to express their feelings. Also, it takes longer for them to open up to strangers and get acquainted with others, especially those of opposite sex. The product and services we offered in the past were clearly more male user-friendly. Therefore, there was a mismatch between what the female users needed and what we empowered them with. In Q1, we started some new product experiments to bridge that gap. We test launched an audio social experience called Affection FM, or 情感电台 in Chinese, and a brand new newsfeed experience called the Miniverse, which allows users to post and interact with content without releasing their profile information. Both of these two product experiments aim at encouraging the users to share their relationship stories and express their feelings, which caters to the part of user mentality that falls on the other side of the spectrum against what is commonly seen on Momo. Our objective here is to improve female users' engagement and retention by better serving them with what we didn't do well before. If we can successfully do that, we can improve the engagement of the entire platform as well. This is a very important direction for our product team to explore this year.
接下来介绍一下我们在推动现金流业务重回增长轨道这一战略重点上取得的进展。
Next, let me review the progresses that we've made against our priority of bringing the cash cow business back onto the growth track.
首先是直播业务，今年直播业务的目标是稳步改善收入和毛利水平。这里我想强调一下毛利，因为管理直播业务的一个常见失误是以毛利和长期生态健康为代价换取收入增长。今年我们将坚持更为持续的增长模式，聚焦发展中长尾内容生态，避免采用强营收项的运营方式，特别是避免那些为快速恢复收入而拉 ARPU 的做法，因为那样可能导致收入向高额用户过度集中。
Firstly, on live broadcasting. Our objective for live broadcasting this year is to deliver a gradual and steady improvement at both revenue and gross profit level. Here, I would like to underscore gross profit because one commonly seen missteps in managing live streaming business is to drive top-line growth at the expense of gross profit and long-term health of the ecosystem. This year, we will be sticking to a more sustainable growth model by focusing on fostering the mid to long tail content ecosystem and avoid applying strong revenue-oriented operational efforts, especially those aimed at lifting ARPU for speedy recovery, which may cause centralization at the very top of the pyramid.
实现健康内容生态的一个必要条件是拥有一个充满活力的内容供给系统，这在去年大规模调整后显得尤为重要。去年4季度，通过王牌主播续约计划，我们成功锁定了绝大部分现有的高流水主播。今年2月，我们开始着手解决供给端的另一个问题，即新主播的招募和培养，能吸引源源不断的优质新主播加入，以及拥有合理的机制为新人提供顺畅的上升通道，对维系健康的内容供给体系来讲十分重要。 作为社交平台，这曾是我们的优势领域之一，但在过去2年中，我们没有为新人这个供给端重要的组成部分提供足够的支持和激励。为了解决这个问题，我们对激励政策做出了另一次调整，使其对新主播更具吸引力。前后两轮激励政策调整获得了新主播和工会的支持，年度盛典赛事的出色表现以及春节后超预期的增长势头都是很好的证明。我认为目前的激励方案对我们看中的各个层级的主播都能提供足够的经济激励和成长机会。如上次电话会上所预期，2轮调整共对毛利率造成2.4个点的负面影响。我们认为分成比例1季度后将保持稳定。我很高兴团队能在一个合理可控的成本上建立一套全面均衡的激励方案。
One imperative for a healthy content ecosystem is to have a vibrant content supply system. This was particularly critical after taking the big surgery last year. Last Q4, with the Golden Broadcaster contract renewal project, we've successfully locked down the big majority of the existing high-grossing broadcasters. In February, we moved on to addressing another issue that we had on the supply end, new talent recruitment and growth. Having a constant flow of high-quality new talents and the right mechanism to make sure they can surface from the bottom to the top is important for maintaining a good metabolic system. As a social platform, this used to be one of our strong areas. However, during the past 2 years, Momo had not provided sufficient support and motivation to this vital part of the supply system. To address this issue, we made another adjustment to our incentive program to make it more appealing to the newcomers. These 2 rounds of adjustments of the incentive program were very well received by the new broadcasters and agencies. This can be proven by the outperformance of the year-end competition as well as better than expected trajectory post the Chinese New Year holiday. I believe our current program provides adequate incentive and motivation to all kinds of broadcasters that we consider important to our content ecosystem. As expected on our last call, the 2 rounds of adjustments collectively had a 2.4% drag on the GP margin. We believe payout ratio should remain stable from Q1 onwards. I'm glad that our team was able to put together a well-rounded incentive program at a fairly manageable cost level.
除了更有效的财务激励外，为了更好的支持入门级人才，我们还调整了算法，向中长尾主播分发更多流量。此外，年初以来，我们每月都会举办1次论坛，与不同的工会和主播进行交流，确保管理层能了解他们的需求、挑战和建议。通过这一系列重整内容生态的努力，1季度我们看到反映生态系统健康程度的一些关键指标出现了很大改善。这些指标包括直播间 DAU、留存率以及日均付费用户数。随着整体内容生态的持续复苏，用户消费也呈现出稳步回暖的势头。2季度到目前为止，非赛事日的日均流水已从春节前后的低谷完全恢复，并达到去年12月的水平。随着下半年生态系统继续向好，这也为用户消费持续增长奠定了良好的基础。
Besides more effective financial incentives, as another part of our effort to better support the entry-level talents, we made adjustments to our algorithm to divert more traffic to the mid to long tail. Moreover, since the beginning of this year, we've also been holding monthly forums where we sit down with different kinds of agencies and broadcasters, making sure their needs, challenges, and suggestions are heard by the management. Due to these concerted efforts to revive the content ecosystem, in Q1 we were able to see meaningful improvement in some of the important metrics that we used to gauge the healthiness of the ecosystem. These metrics include the number of in-channel DAUs, retention ratio, and the number of average daily paying user. As the overall content ecosystem continues to recover, the spending has also been showing steady and gradual improvement. So far into the second quarter, the non-event days daily grossing has fully come back from the trough around Chinese New Year and is now back to December's level. It sets a good foundation for the spending to continue to improve as the content ecosystem does in the second half of the year.
接下来介绍一下增值业务。1季度万斯业绩表现非常出色，即便受到季节性因素的负面影响，收入仍实现42%的同比增长，增速较去年显著提升。在万斯各个场景中，聊天室是本季度增长贡献最大的场景， 和其他音视频社交体验相比，聊天室的用户规模更大，且付费用户结构更偏长尾。去年全年，团队在运营上一直采取节制的态度，而专注于产品创新推动的自然增长。今年我们将继续采取这种增长方式。去年4季度，我们推出了以不同节日为主题的套系礼物，实践证明这款产品在提高营收和用户活跃度方面非常有效。1季度，我们为春节和情人节打造了全新的套系礼物，推动聊天室实现非常强劲的增长。我们在兴趣群组里也复制这个礼物玩法，同样受到群组用户的好评。
Now turning to VAS. Value-added services has been a real outperformer in Q1, growing against seasonality at 42% year-over-year, a significant acceleration from last year. Among various experiences within VAS, chat room was the biggest growth contributor for the quarter. In comparison with other audio and video-based social entertainment experiences, chat room has a much larger user base, and the paying user structure is also more long-tail driven. Throughout last year, the team has been operating this business at a controlled pace and mainly focusing on introducing innovative products and that drives organic growth. This will continue to be the way we grow this business this year. Last Q4, we introduced 套系礼物, which means themed seasonal gifts. It has proven to be very effective in terms of driving revenue and engagement. In Q1, we reinvented it for Chinese New Year and Valentine's Day, which enabled chat room to deliver an exceptional growth for the quarter. We made this gift feature available in the interest group as well, which was also well received by the users there.
除了套系礼物外，缘分交友是1季度 VAS 增长的另一驱动因素。缘分交友是由主持人参与的视频交友体验，在低线城市用户中广受欢迎。这款产品自去年下半年开始，在用户留存和产品体验上开始有所表现，同时收入也进入稳步增长的轨道。这一增长势头在1季度有所延续。我们预计这款产品在下半年会对营收产生更加显著的贡献。
In addition to the boosts that we got from the themed seasonal gifts, the other thing that started to gain traction in Q1 was the matchmaking experience, or 缘分交友 in Chinese. Matchmaking is a moderated video dating experience. It is particularly popular among lower-tier city users. It started gaining traction in terms of retention and product experience in the second half of last year. Meanwhile, its revenue also began to ramp up steadily. The growth trend continued into Q1, and we expect it to become a meaningful revenue contributor heading into the second half.
接下来很快介绍一下新业务。赫兹和对对在留存和用户规模方面都持续向我们的目标靠拢，收入伴随用户规模的增长也有所提升，并进一步接近 RR2， 即营收水平有能力覆盖其自身的收入分成以及营销成本。我们计划在未来几个月实现赫兹和对对 RR 的目标。如果能够实现，我们计划在下半年加大推广力度。正如上次财报电话会上所说，今年的重点仍将聚焦在产品及用户体验。但即便如此，我们预计这两款产品的营收仍将保持上升趋势，并且在年内对 VAS 做出更大的收入贡献。
Now quickly on the new endeavors, both Hertz and 对对 continue to make progresses against our target, both in terms of user retention and user scale. Their revenues have been growing in line with user growth. We are currently on track to reach ROI2, which means generating enough revenue to cover both revenue sharing costs and marketing expenses. Our goal is to hit the ROI2 target for both Hertz and 对对 in the coming few months. If we can fulfill that target, we then have planned to push the marketing button more aggressively in the second half of the year. As said, on our last earnings call, this year our main focus will remain on product and user experience. That said, we do expect their revenue to trend up and contribute further into the VAS business line as we head deeper into the year.
简而言之，就Momo主 app 来说，直播经过去年坎坷的历程，最终进入了稳步回升的轨道。加上 VAS 面临的增长机会，使我们有足够的信心认为，Momo主 app 将继续作为一个非常有效并能持续发展的现金流业务，为我们提供足够的空间探索Momo和探探之外的新契机，从而建立更长期的增长动力。
To put things in a nutshell for the core business, live streaming business, after a very bumpy journey last year, is finally on a steady improving trend. That, coupled with the growth opportunities we have in VAS, give us the confidence that the core Momo will continue to be a very productive and evolving cash cow business. This will leave us ample room to invest in new endeavors beyond Momo and Tantan in order to build longer-term drivers.
接下来说下探探。在回顾探探的业务和战略重点之前，我先谈一下探探团队的一项人事变动。今年4月，探探创始人兼 CEO 王宇以及 CEO 潘颖辞去了各自的职务，他们已不再参与探探的日常管理工作。众所周知，探探在过去几年遭遇了许多挑战。我和王宇一致认为，探探的最主要任务是提升产品体验和市场投放效率，加强团队的执行能力，这样才能有效把握住眼前巨大的用户增长机会。然而，对于需要做出哪些改变才能更有效地展开工作，王宇和我存在不同的看法。王宇选择尊重我们的意见，也认为探探是时候需要新的管理团队领导公司发展。王宇离开后，由我担任探探的代理 CEO， 并亲自领导当前正在进行的改革。今后Momo和探探两个团队将紧密合作，推动更深层次的业务协同。
Now turning to Tantan. Before I get into the business and strategies at Tantan, I'd like to talk about a major change for the Tantan team. In April, Tantan's founder and CEO Wang Yu, as well as COO Pan Ying, stepped down from their respective positions. They are no longer involved in Tantan's daily executions. As many of you know, Tantan encountered many challenges in the past couple of years. Mr. Wang and I have a consensus view that the biggest priority for Tantan is to make Tantan's product and marketing efforts more effective and execution more efficient so that we can grab the great growth opportunities that we're seeing. However, in terms of what changes we need in order to move things forward more effectively, Mr. Wang and I had some major differences that are difficult to reconcile. Mr. Wang chose to respect my opinion and decided this is the time that Tantan needs a new leadership. I'm now the acting CEO of Tantan and personally leading Tantan's reforms, which is happening now as we speak. Going forward, Momo and Tantan teams will work closely together to move faster on a deeper level of collaboration.
王宇和潘颖一直以来都是我们有价值的合作伙伴，我想借此机会对他们为探探所做的努力及贡献表示感谢。我要代表Momo和探探团队祝福他们在新的事业中取得更大的成就。
Wang Yu and Pan Ying have been valuable partners to our company. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank them for their dedication and contribution to Tantan. On behalf of both Momo and Tantan teams, I wish them the very best in pursuing their new endeavors.
在介绍战略目标取得的进展之前，我先快速回顾一下探探的财务表现。2021年一季度，探探总营收5.68亿人民币，同比增长49%，主要来自直播推动的 RP 增长。另外，用户向更高价位的会员服务转移，也对 RP 起到提升作用。环比来看，受直播业务的影响，收入呈现出很强的季节性下跌。探探直播的绝大部分收入来自于分散的长尾主播，寒假期间总开播时长和活跃直播间数量明显下降，导致直播收入大幅下滑，且节后恢复缓慢。一季度直播收入环比下降38%，至2.51亿人民币 ，Live 收入环比下降6%，至3.16亿人民币，主要由于1、2月份用户的下跌以及新用户女比提升对付费转化产生的负面影响。
Before I talk about the progresses we've made against our strategic goal, let me quickly review Tantan's financial performance. Total revenue for the first quarter was 568 million RMB, up 49% year-on-year. The growth was driven by the increase in RP2, which was largely contributed by the live streaming service, and to a lesser degree, users' shift toward higher price membership services. On a sequential basis, revenue had strong seasonality this year due to the live streaming service. The big majority of Tantan's live streaming revenue comes from long-tail broadcasters who are difficult to manage. Total broadcasting time and the number of active channels declined significantly during the winter holiday period, causing a deep dive in live streaming revenue and subsequent slow recovery. As a result, live streaming revenue dropped 38% sequentially to 251 million RMB. VAS revenue decreased 6% from Q4 last year to 316 million RMB. The sequential decrease was due to the weak user trend in January and February, as well as the higher female ratio in the newly acquired users.
接下来进入我今天发言最重要的部分，探探今年的战略重点，以及我们将如何有效推动用户增长，并全面释放探探的潜力。
Now turning to the most important part of my speech today, Tantan's strategic priorities for the year and our plan on how to drive user growth more effectively and unleash the full potential of Tantan going forward.
我们一直认为探探有潜力发展成比陌陌当前规模更大的平台，这主要基于我们看到的一些正在发生的长期趋势，以及一个毋庸置疑的事实，即探探是目前中国最专注且最有效的一款致力于帮助人们建立浪漫关系并实现线下关系转化的社交产品。探探之所以没有达到它应有的增长速度，并非因为缺乏市场机会或者有更强的竞争对手，而是因为我们自身需要在一些重要领域做出改进。在过去相当长的时间里，我们的市场投放工作并不十分有效，产品体验也有很大的改进空间。
We have always believed that Tantan has the potential to grow bigger than where Momo is today. This view is supported by the secular trends that we are seeing in China's dating space, as well as the fact that Tantan is the most committed as well as the most effective product in connecting people for romantic purposes and offline relationship conversions. The reason why Tantan has not been growing as fast as it should was not because the opportunities are not there or somebody else is stronger than we are, but because there are important areas where we need to improve. For quite a long period of time in the past, our marketing efforts had been ineffective, and the product experience has a lot of room for improvement as well.
今年探探最重要的目标就是通过解决上述获客和产品方面的问题，从而实现用户稳定快速增长。4月至今，我的主要任务是组建一支高效的团队来推进这方面的工作。我把陌陌一些最优秀的人员调到探探，以便迅速启动这边的工作。我们花了2个月的时间梳理了重点领域，并制定了今年的目标执行方案。现在我来介绍一下方案中的关键部分。
The single most important goal for Tantan this year is to make sure that we deliver solid user growth by addressing the above-mentioned issues. From April till now, my job has been putting together the right team to lead these efforts. I moved some of my best people and Momo onto this project so that we can hit the ground running. We spent the past 2 months combing through the key areas of focus and now have a plan to achieve our goal for this year. Now let me walk you through the key steps of this plan.
首先，我们需要大幅提升探探的营销效率。在这方面，很遗憾地说，我们过去2年做的并不好。4月接管探探之后，我们对其营销方式进行了全面复盘，结果再次印证了我们的观点，即通过获客系统的改革，探探还有很大的用户增长空间。陌陌在通过改革实现渠道提效及用户增长方面有经验证的可行方案，所以通过渠道改革推动探探的用户增长，对我们团队来说将会是一个不难达到的目标。2季度我们的工作包括搭建完善的渠道推广团队，重新设置和启动数据管理系统，并设计一套新的获客方案，这其中包括替换旧的投放计划和广告素材等。4、5月我们重点专注在团队建设及获客系统的重塑，这期间的减投令 DAU 出现了下降，预计随着新系统6月逐渐起量，用户将重回增长轨道。
First, we need to significantly improve Tantan's marketing efficiency. On that front, I'm afraid we have not been doing the right things during the past 2 years. After we took over in April, we've conducted a comprehensive review of Tantan's marketing approaches. The review reconfirmed our belief that Tantan should have ample room for user growth by reforming its user acquisition system. We have a standard playbook at Momo for the reform, and thus we view it as a low-hanging fruit that we can pick. Our job in Q1 would include building up a fully functioning marketing team, resetting and restarting the data management system, and devising a new set of user acquisition programs, including targeting strategy and ad materials to completely replace the old ones. The number of DAU were under some pressure in April and May, while we decreased the marketing spend in order to focus on rebuilding the team and reworking the system. We expect the user trend to start picking up again as the new system gains traction moving into June.
市场营销方面，我们认为另一个有效推动探探用户增长的机会将会是品牌广告。在过去3、4年的时间里，我们几乎没有做过任何品牌方面的工作。探探作为一个相对年轻的品牌，认知度远未达到应有的水平。很多人之所以不用探探，是因为他们没听说过探探，或者未能真正了解探探所能提供的核心价值，又或者是对探探的品牌认知存在负面的误解。 如果我们能够向探探的目标人群清晰传达产品的核心价值，探探就可以通过提升用户认知度和品牌价值，迎来巨大的增长机会。因此，我们将选择适当的时机，针对探探进行一轮品牌推广。这个工作会在我们完成下一轮重大改版后进行。
Another thing on the marketing side that we believe can contribute to the overall user growth is brand advertising. We hardly made any branding efforts in the past 3 to 4 years. However, Tantan, as a relatively younger brand, its brand awareness is far from the level where it needs to be. There are many people who are not using Tantan because they have not heard of us before, or yet to be fully aware of the core value that Tantan can provide, or have some misconception about Tantan's brand and services. There is a huge opportunity for us to drive user awareness and enhance brand equity if we can clearly articulate the core value of Tantan to those who may need our service. We will invest more into branding when opportunity arises. It should be the right timing after we complete our next major product upgrade.
第二个用户增长引擎是产品创新。我们需要使探探的产品体验更具吸引力。虽然探探无疑是中国市场上最专注、最有效的约会和社交产品，但我们仍然有很大的空间来更好地帮助用户建立浪漫关系。在前端，我们要提供更加简洁的产品方案，以便强化核心的约会体验。在后台，我们要让滑动匹配系统更加有效。探探拥有一座用户数据的金矿，我们可以挖掘并利用这些数据进行更加个性化的推荐，这是技术和大数据挖掘可以发挥的重要作用的领域。然而，在过去的3、4年的时间里，我们并没有在这方面展开行之有效的工作。我们需要在这方面付出真正的努力，并看到切实的改变。我们的目标是通过更有效的推荐来改善核心的匹配和互动体验。我们希望看到用户在滑动匹配和进行互动时，能够真实地感受到这些变化。
The second growth driver is product innovation. We need to make Tantan's product experience more appealing. While Tantan is undoubtedly the most dedicated and effective dating app in China, we do have many opportunities to optimize so that we can do better in connecting the users for romantic purpose. On the front end, we need to make the user's interface more succinct and core dating experience more prominent. On the back end, we need to make the swipe and match system more effective. Tantan is sitting on a gold mine of user data that we can mine and leverage to make more relevant recommendations. This is where technology and big data mining can play very important roles. We have not been very effective in doing that during the past 3 to 4 years. We need to see real efforts made and concrete changes on that front as well. The goal is to improve user experience in the core swipe and match mechanism through more effective recommendations. We need users to be able to feel these changes when they swipe through the cards and interact with the matches.
在强化探探核心约会体验的同时，我们还将继续探索更加多元化的周边功能和服务，使探探能够更加适合亚洲的约会文化。这也将进一步提升用户活跃度和留存，从而促进用户增长。
While continuing to strengthen our dating-related product offering, we are also going to keep exploring more diversified features and services to make the Tantan experience better fit into the Asian dating culture. This in turn will further improve user engagement and retention, which will translate into user growth.
探探用户增长的第3个支柱来自于与陌陌的协同效应。虽然探探将继续保持独立的组织和运营架构，但我相信探探在很多领域都可以和陌陌进行合作，并产生巨大的协同效应。在市场、技术和数据领域尤为如此。未来我们将会加快合作发展的步伐。
The third pillar of our Tantan plan is to drive more synergies between Momo and Tantan. While Tantan will continue to maintain an independent organizational and operational structure, I believe there are many areas where Tantan and Momo can work together and drive significant synergies. This is especially true in the areas of marketing, technology, and data collaborations. This is an area where we will definitely move faster in the future.
以上是本次电话会我想和大家分享的内容。接下来请Jonathan为大家介绍具体的财务情况。
These are the things I'd like to cover on this call. Now let me pass the call over to Mr. Jonathan Zhang for financial review. Zhang, please.
Thank you. Hi everyone, thank you for joining our conference call today. Now let me briefly take you through the financial review. Total revenue for the first quarter 2021 was 3.47 billion RMB, down 3% year-on-year or 9% quarter-on-quarter, exceeding the high end of our revenue guidance. The year-on-year decrease was significantly narrowed compared to Q4 last year, thanks to the combination of fruits coming out of the structural reform in live streaming business, as well as the accelerated growth in the core Momo VAS. Non-GAAP net income attributable to Momo was 633.7 million RMB, compared to 736.3 million RMB from the same period 2020, or a 14% decrease year-over-year. Looking into the key revenue items for the quarter. Firstly, on live broadcasting. Total revenue for live broadcasting business for the first quarter 2021 was 1.96 billion RMB, down 16% both from the same period last year and from last quarter. Core Momo live broadcasting revenue totaled 1.71 billion for the first quarter, down 26% from the same period last year and 11% from last quarter, while Tantan's live broadcasting revenue amounted 251 million RMB, down 38% from previous quarter. The year-over-year decrease for core was due to the structural reform that we have been undertaking since August last year. The sequential decrease for both Momo and Tantan was due to the Chinese New Year negative seasonality. Moving on to VAS. Revenue from value-added services reached 1.46 billion RMB, up 24% year-on-year, and 4% quarter-on-quarter. Wang Li has reviewed Tantan's revenue performance, so I will focus on core Momo. Revenue from VAS, excluding 316 million from Tantan, reached 1.14 billion RMB in the first quarter 2021, a 42% increase year-on-year and 7% increase sequentially. The solid performance of Momo's core VAS business was primarily driven by the team's focus on product innovation and effective operational efforts. Audio and video-based social entertainment experience continued to generate strong growth momentum and was the biggest revenue driver for the core Momo VAS. In addition, our new endeavors started gaining traction and contributed incremental revenue to the VAS line in Q1. Let me briefly review the cost and expenses items for the quarter. Our non-GAAP cost revenue for the first quarter 2021 was 1.92 billion RMB compared to 1.85 billion for the same period last year. Non-GAAP cost of revenue as a percentage of total revenue was 55.2%, an increase from 51.5% from Q1 2020. Non-GAAP gross profit margin for the quarter was down 3.7% from a year ago. The decrease was attributed to the following factors. Number one, higher payout ratio from core Momo live broadcasting business. A lower gross margin for Tantan as its live broadcasting business has become sizable. Higher payout ratio from core Momo VAS business due to the robust growth coming from the audio video-based social entertainment business, a big part of which involved third-party professional moderators. And lastly, certain fixed nature costs, such as headcounts, impacted gross margin negatively as total revenue declined, and these items represent a higher percentage of total net revenue. On a sequential basis, the non-GAAP gross margin was down 2 percentage points compared to Q4 last year, which fell into the optimistic end of our original expectation. As mentioned on our last call, we had expected the new broadcaster-oriented incentive program adjustment to have 2 to 3% adverse impact on gross margin from Q1 onwards. I'm glad that the team was able to put together a well-rounded incentive program that is well received by the new broadcasters and agencies. At the same time, managed to control the cost structure at a fairly reasonable level. We believe the current incentive program provides sufficient motivation to all kinds of broadcasters that we deem important to maintain a vibrant ecosystem. We expect the payout ratio to maintain stable level from Q1 onwards. Non-GAAP R&D expenses for the first quarter was 244.1 million RMB compared to 217 million RMB for the same period last year, representing 7% and 6% of total net revenue, respectively. On a sequential basis, non-GAAP R&D expenses decreased 15% from 286.5 million in Q4 last year due to the year-end bonus expenses accrued at the year-end then. We ended the quarter with 2,333 total employees, of which 828 are from Tantan. R&D personnel as a percentage of total employees for the group was 57% compared to 56% in Q1 last year. Non-GAAP sales and marketing expenses for the first quarter was 579.8 million RMB, or 16.7% of total revenue, compared to 645.3 million RMB, or 18% of total revenue for the same period last year. The year-over-year decrease in sales marketing expenses, both in terms of RMB amount and in terms of as a percentage of total revenue, was primarily due to less spending from core Momo as we postponed our live streaming year-end gala event as a precaution against the pandemic, and lower user acquisition investment from Tantan in the first half of the quarter to avoid channel competition while focusing on fixing the broken pieces in its user acquisition system. Non-GAAP G&A expenses was 94.2 million RMB for the first quarter 2021 compared to 105.5 million RMB for the same quarter last year, representing 2.7% and 2.9% of total net revenue, respectively. Non-GAAP operating income was 661.2 million RMB, a decrease of 17% from Q1 2020, representing 19.1% non-GAAP operating margin for the first quarter, down 3.2% from the same period last year. Non-GAAP OPEX as a percentage of total revenue was 26.5%, a slight decrease from 26.9% from Q1 2020. Now briefly on income tax expenses. For Q1, the company received a tax refund, which was resulted from additional expense deduction related to previous years. Without one-off refund, our estimated non-GAAP effective tax rate was around 19% for the first quarter. Now turning to the balance sheet and cash flow items. As of March 31st, 2021, Momo's cash cash equivalent, short-term deposit, long-term deposit, and restricted cash totaled 16.96 billion RMB compared to 16.48 billion RMB as of December 31st, 2020. Net cash provided by operating activities in the first quarter 2021 was 502 million RMB compared to 543 million RMB in the same quarter last year. Lastly, on the business outlook, we estimated our second quarter revenue to come in the range from 3.6 billion RMB to 3.7 billion RMB, representing a decrease of 6.9% to 4.3% year-on-year, but an increase of 3.7% to 6.6% quarter-over-quarter. For Q2 2021, on a sequential basis, we expected the total revenue from core Momo to increase in a high single percent. The total revenue from Tantan is expected to decrease around 10% due to the following factors. Number one, the decrease in paying users, especially in April and May, due to the weak DAU performance caused by temporary disruption during the management transition period. Number two, changes in gender ratio. In the increase in female percentage in the new user acquired in recent periods adversely impacted paying conversion, as women are much less likely to pay for value-added services in comparison with the men. Number three, the spin-off of two early-stage businesses, which will have a slight negative impact on the number of paying users as well as the total revenue. The business involved were loss-making at the point of spin-off and generated immaterial revenues in comparison with the Tantan's total revenue. We will recognize 1 month revenue from these businesses in Q2 as the transition was completed in early May. The spin-off will have a full quarter impact on the top line in Q3. Please be mindful that this forecast represents the company's current preliminary view on the market and operational conditions, which are subject to changes. The other thing worth mentioning here is that up to this moment, we have paid a special cash dividends for the third year in a row. To replenish our US dollar funding consumed, the company has repatriated 1.3 billion RMB in total from our WFOE in China to our offshore entity in the second quarter. In accordance with the respective taxation law in China, the company has paid 10% or 130 million RMB withholding tax to the Chinese tax authorities. The withholding tax payments will be recorded as income tax expense for the company's second quarter 2021. That concluded our prepared portion of today's discussion. With that, let me turn the call back to Kathy to start the Q&A. Kathy, please.
Just a quick reminder, for those who can speak Chinese, can you please ask the question in Chinese first, followed by English translation by yourself? And also, if you could limit the number of questions to 2 at max. Operator, ready for questions.
Thank you. As a reminder, to ask a question, you need to press star and the number 1 on your telephones. To withdraw your question, please press the pound or hash key. And please stand by while we compile the Q&A roster. Once again, for your questions, please press star and the number 1 and wait for your name to be announced. First question comes from the line of Thomas Chong of Jefferies. Line is open. Please go ahead.
晚上好，谢谢管理层接受我的提问。我有两个问题，第一个问题是关于探探的。当我们经历过这个管理层的management change 以后了，我们下半年呢应该怎么看我们用户数还有就是收入端呢？我们的预期呢，可以跟大家分享一下嘛。另外的话呢，就是如果探探今年的一个比较重要的 KPI 是这个用户数的增长，可以分享一下呢，我们对那个市场推广费用 sales and marketing 呢，我们的 budget 今年是怎么样的？这个会不会影响到探探呢今年的盈利了？然后我第二个问题是关于 Core Momo 那边，主要都是想问一下呢，我们怎么看下半年那个 live streaming 那边的展望？Thanks management for taking my questions. I have two questions. The first one is about Tantan. Can management share about our strategies on the user and the revenue trend in the second half after the management change? In addition, if Tantan focus on user growth this year, how we should think about the trend in sales and marketing expenses, as well as our thoughts on Tantan profitability in 2021. My second question is about Core Momo. Can management comment about the live streaming outlook in the second half? Thank you.
好，谢谢。那首先是第一个问题，那我们团队呢全面接手探探的投放管理已经1个月了。在这个过程当中呢，还是发现了很多原来的投放机制流程的问题，是需要修正的。这令我们团队对于未来的增长空间充满了信心，因为任何过去的问题都可以通过正确的方法变成未来的机会，并且呢，这当中有相当一部分技术性问题并不难以解决。那我们的计划呢是用2到3个月的时间调整到位，并且可以看到可观的新客增量以及相应的生态改变。那年底之前我们需要看到明显的用户增长。目前我为团队设定的目标是20%到35%。更重要的是我们要见到新客质量的显著改善，例如更多年轻的用户，男女比例呢也需要更加的均衡。
Okay, let me translate the first point first. We've fully taken over Tantan's user acquisition effort for about a month. During that process, we've identified many broken windows that we need to fix. That actually has given us a lot of confidence in the user growth prospects of Tantan, because any past problems, if addressed with the right approaches, could be turned into future opportunities. And among the problems that we've identified, many of them are actually technical errors that are not difficult to fix. So our plan is to use the coming 2 to 3 months time to get all the problems fixed. Doing that alone should be able to bring in pretty considerable increase in the new registrations, as well as improvement to the dating ecosystem. The goal that I have here is to see meaningful increase in the user base. Currently, we are targeting a range between 20 to 35% growth. And more importantly, we also need to see a substantial improvement in the quality of new users that we acquire. For example, we obviously need more younger users, and we also need a more balanced gender ratio in the new users.
我们也会在适当时候呢开始公布探探的用户数字，因为市场上的一些第三方机构对于探探的用户数有明显的低估。我希望投资人能够通过可靠的数据来了解探探的发展情况。这个工作将在完成了团队组建以及整个后台数据的梳理整合之后开始进行。我们预计将在今年稍晚开始公布探探的用户数字。
The second point on the user front is that when we get ready, we're going to start disclosing Tantan's user data, because right now I'm seeing pretty significant underestimate of Tantan's user scale by some of the third-party data monitoring platform. I know a lot of you guys are relying on these third party to gauge Tantan's user performance. I think we need to give investors more reliable and accurate data to do so. So the plan is that after we have a fully functional data team and finishing combing through and integrating the backend data system, we're going to start getting prepared for the disclosure. I think investors can expect to have Tantan self-disclose user data sometime later this year.
收入预期方面有几点值得提一下。一是二季度由于团队交接呢，令4月、5月的渠道工作受到暂时的影响导致新增较低，收入受到了负面影响。那么下半年随着用户开始增长，收入也会相应增长。用户增长会是今年下半年最大的一个收入驱动因素。
On the revenue side, here are some points for you to sort of form some preliminary expectation about the second half. First point is the transition in the second quarter did cause some temporary disruption on the user acquisition front, which has led to a decrease in the number of new users, particularly in the months of April and May. That is going to have some negative impact on revenues. But as user numbers starts picking up in the second half, revenue is going to grow as well. I do think that user growth is going to be the biggest revenue driver in the second half of the year.
二是我们在梳理产品体验问题的过程当中呢，发现过去一段时间为了完成用户数和会员数和收入目标吧，探探在男女比例和付费墙设计方面呢，都存在一些短期行为。这些短期行为虽然有助于提升付费转化，但对于用户体验和长期的生态都是非常不利的。因此我们在下半年会把一些对于用户体验和生态负向的短期营收手段去掉，这会对付费率产生一定的负面影响。那我们觉得长期来看一定是个正确的事情。
The second point is that while we combed through the problems that we had on the user front, on the product front, what we found out was that during the past a quite long period of time, in order to meet some of the short-term targets in the number of paying users, as well as the quarterly revenue targets, Tantan has made some very short-term oriented revenue efforts that were positive in driving up the paying conversion ratio, but could cause harm on the user experience and the healthiness of the dating ecosystem. For example, we acquired way more male users and female users, and the paywalls were also designed a bit more aggressively than we probably should have. So the plan is that as we head into the second half of the year, we're going to remove some of the extremely short-term oriented efforts in order to take care of user experience and the dating ecosystem. That is going to have some negative impact on the paying conversion, but long-term wise, we think this is definitely the right thing to do.
另外一个点是关于探探的直播。那直播对于探探来说是一个渗透率较低的辅助型体验，不会像在陌陌平台上成为一个高渗透的主流场景。这是探探直播的一个特别之处。那第二个特别之处呢是，探探用户平均的付费能力较高，而且分布比较平均，而不是像陌陌那样两极分化。那因此探探直播相对保持着扁平化，同时高 ARPU 的这么一个特点。那所以最终我判断探探直播会成为一个比较赚钱的小场景。那我们对探探直播的策略是继续保持这种小而扁平化的特征，不做提升 ARPU 的一个运营。同时我们会继续大幅的向约会场景倾斜，在产品和设计上进一步弱化直播。
The other point that is relevant in forming the revenue expectation is our view about Tantan's live streaming. The way I think about Tantan's live streaming is that ultimately it's going to be only a supplementary experience that has a relatively lower DAU penetration. This is in comparison with Momo's live streaming, which is fairly mainstream sort of use case with a high level of DAU penetration. That's the difference in penetration ratio is one thing different about Tantan's live streaming. The other uniqueness about Tantan's live streaming is that the average paying capabilities of Tantan's users is actually pretty high, and it's much more evenly distributed as opposed to Momo's situation where there's a wide disparity between the top and the bottom in terms of how much each individual is paying on the platform. So Tantan's live streaming is able to maintain a pretty flattish structure and at the same time a very high level of ARPU. So my view is that ultimately Tantan's live streaming is going to be a very profitable small use case within the application, and our strategy is to keep it small, keep it flattish by not putting in very RPP-oriented revenue efforts, and at the same time, we are going to be heavily leaning toward the core dating experience and further de-emphasize live streaming in terms of product design.
总体上，我们认为今年下半年探探的用户增长会带来总体收入的增长，但由于上面提到的因素，那商业化的深度呢有可能适当回撤。一旦探探用户体验调整到位，用户增长走上这个稳定快速增长的正轨，那我们会重启新的商业化项目包括非会员的 VAS 项目。我们对探探的营收和赚钱能力是完全有信心的，投资人在这方面呢不需要有任何的怀疑。但是最近几个季度我们会完全专注于核心社交体验和用户增长。包括商业化和追求利润在内的任何其他事情呢，都会从属于这个目标。这样的策略也会令今年下半年的收入和利润受到影响。我们也因此要暂时放弃下半年盈亏平衡的目标。但我们坚信这对现阶段来说的话，是一个非常正确的决定。
Overall, if you put all these different pieces together, we believe that as we move into the second half, the revenue on Tantan is going to grow, primarily driven by user growth. But because of some of the factors that I mentioned, we're going to take a few steps back in terms of how deep we monetize Tantan. After we get to a satisfactory level in terms of product experience and get the users onto a stable and rapid growth track, we're going to reactivate the monetization projects that we have been running, including the a la carte VAS feature that we've been testing. Overall, we have full confidence in Tantan's ability to bring in revenues and ultimately make a lot of profit. I don't think investors really need to have any doubt on that front. But for the coming few quarters, we're going to be solely and fully focused on the core dating experience and doing the right thing on the user growth front. Any other stuff, including monetization and the pursuit of profit, will be subservient to that main goal. Such strategy will have some negative impact on both the top line and bottom line in the second half, and therefore we have to forego. I think we need to temporarily forego our previous target to reach break-even point in the second half of the year. But I believe for longer-term good, this is definitely the right thing to do at this point in time.
然后短期利润的情况呢，请 Jonathan 给大家分析一下。
Now here's Jonathan to talk about the bottom line.
Hi everyone. Let me just provide some specific color on what Wang Li just briefed. On the revenue side, to be specific, we currently, because we scale back, many monetization efforts on Tantan platform, we still target to achieve the revenue growth sequentially from Q2 level in the second half of the year. However, for the full year, the lowered revenue target, we currently see will be most likely to be down by high single percentage point from last year's level for the full year. And also, as we intend to continue to invest in the marketing channels to even better support the user growth, we expect the non-GAAP net loss will widen sequentially. So the total loss for the year could reach to 350 million RMB to 450 million RMB, which is higher than what we previously communicated, less than 100 million RMB net loss for the year target we set at the beginning of the year. So that's the for Tantan.
Second question.
那关于第二个问题的话是这样，那营收刚才我已经讲了很多了，我总结一下，Momo靠过去几个月的营收表现呢，超过了我们年初的预期。我们现在可以非常自信的说，Momo主平台仍然是一个生产力强劲的一个现金流业务。
On the revenue side of the core Momo, this is the second question. On the revenue side of the core Momo, I've actually shared a lot in the previous section. Maybe I'll just try to sum up a little bit. The revenue performance on the core during the past few months has actually exceeded our expectation at the beginning of the year, which has given us full confidence to say that the core is still a very strong and productive cash cow business.
直播从各方面，不管是生态指标、供给方还是需求方来看，都已经进入稳定回升轨道，并且我们的主播和工会激励机制呢，也已经完全调整到位，封城比例也将保持在一个稳定的状态。
If you look at the live streaming business from different aspects, whether it's the health of the content supply system, the content ecosystem, the situation on the supply end or demand side is on a stable recovery trend from all those different aspects. In addition, we've also fully completed the adjustments that we needed in order to have a satisfactory and effective incentive program through the agency and broadcasters. So payout ratio is going to stay at a stable level as well.
VAS 方面，团队产品创新能力在不断提高，这也推动了 VAS 营收空间的增长。大家可以看到上半年Momo Core 的核心的这样 VAS 业务从去年30%的同比增长率增加到了40%左右，这也超越了我们早些时候的预期。但我们并不想让 VAS 过于激进的增长，所以下半年我们会适当控制一下增速，把更多的精力放在产品体验上，让 VAS 的跑道呢变得更长。
On the VAS side, the team's ability to continue to innovate on the product side is pushing the headroom for further revenue growth for VAS higher and higher. As you guys can see, the VAS on the core has accelerated from 30-something% of YY growth last year to 40-something% YY growth during the first half of this year. That has also exceeded our earlier expectation. But actually, I do not think we need to pursue the rate of growth that aggressively on VAS. So in the second half, I'm hoping that the team can maybe control the pace of growth a little bit and shift part of the focus onto the product itself. And the goal here is to build a longer runway for the future growth of VAS business.
那么综合看下来，下半年 Momo Core 的营收同比会回到正增长的轨道。那么希望4季度可以有双位数的增长。这个目标目前来看的话，还是非常轻松的。
Again, if you put all these different pieces together, it looks like that it's very possible that the core will turn YY positive. The core's revenue will turn YY positive in the second half of the year. I'm hoping that in the fourth quarter we could reach double-digit YY growth. And now it looks like a pretty easy target to reach. In the interest of time, I think this is going to be the end of the Q&A session. Operator, we're ready to close. Thank you for joining our conference call. We'll see you next quarter.
Thank you. This concludes today's conference call. Thank you for participating. You may now disconnect.